After the attacks of 9/11, the CIA sought and was granted unprecedented authority to capture al-Qaeda suspects, whisk them off to secret sites, and interrogate them with harsh techniques, including waterboarding. The man who ran the interrogation program was Jose Rodriguez, a CIA spy in Latin America, who rose to become head of the clandestine service, the CIA's dark side. When the agency's secret program was revealed, it was widely criticized. But the blunt-spoken, Puerto Rican-born Rodriguez is fighting back. He's written a book, a defense of the interrogations, called Hard Measures. And tonight you will hear his side of the story. It's the first time someone this close to the program, this accountable, has gone public, explaining why techniques that had long been condemned by the U.S. as torture were employed.
The story will continue in a moment.
For the first time in our history, we had an enemy come into our homeland and kill 3,000 people. I mean, that was a huge deal. People jumping from the towers to their death, the people running away from the cloud of dust, terrified out of their mind. This was a threat, and we had to throw everything at it.
Which is why Jose Rodriguez says that when he ran the CIA's Counterterrorist Center, he came up with the idea of employing harsh interrogation techniques. And 10 years later, he feels he still has to justify their use. You had no qualms. We used to consider some of them war crimes.
We made some al-Qaeda terrorists with American blood on their hands uncomfortable for a few days, but we did the right thing for the right reason. And the right reason was to protect the homeland and to protect American lives. So, yes, I had no qualms.
Rodriguez spent 31 years in the CIA's clandestine service, where spies are revered as fighter jocks. He rose through the ranks, eventually running covert operations as head of the Latin America division. When al-Qaeda struck on 9/11, he had had no experience in counterterrorism or the Middle East, but he wanted in on the war on terror and went to the CIA's Counterterrorist Center, where the main objective was to stop another attack on the U.S. homeland.
We were flooded with intelligence about an imminent attack, that al-Qaeda had an anthrax program, and that they were planning to use it against us, and that they were seeking nuclear materials to use in some type of nuclear weapon. So we were facing a ticking time bomb situation, and we were very concerned.
So you were getting pressure from Congress and the White House to take the gloves off. Did you go to the dark side?
Well, the dark side, that's what we do.
You are the dark side.
We are the dark side, yes.
His first big operation came after the capture of a Palestinian, thought then to have high-level al-Qaeda connections, named Abu Zubaydah. When he was taken prisoner in Pakistan in the spring of 2002, Abu Zubaydah was badly injured in a firefight.
He actually was on the verge of dying. I mean, we brought in a surgeon from the U.S. to help him out.
You brought in a top-rate surgeon,
yes,
from Johns Hopkins.
Yes, the best that we could find.
You save him so you can squeeze everything out of his brain that you can.
So we could elicit intelligence that would allow us to keep our country safe. So we took him to a black site.
Black Site. It was the first of several secret interrogation centers around the world. Abu Zubaydah was still recovering from his gunshot wounds when the interrogation began. When you start the interrogation, it's both the CIA and the FBI, right?
Correct. This was our prisoner, our site,
meaning CIA?
Our show, CIA,
yeah.
But we had invited the FBI to come along.
Now there's a big dispute over which agency got more information and more valuable information. At first, FBI interrogators used their standard interviewing techniques with no coercion, and Abu Zubaydah cooperated, giving tips and leads. But
after he regains his strength, he stopped talking.
And then he just shuts down? Is that what happened?
He shuts down.
But the FBI's lead interrogator says he didn't shut down. And he argued at the time that they should continue with the FBI's traditional methods of questioning. Rodriguez, though, heard the ticking time bomb and felt a sense of urgency.
If there was going to be another attack against the U.S., we would have blood in our hands because we would not have been able to extract that information from him. So we started to talk about an alternative set of interrogation procedures.
So you're the one who went looking for something to break this guy.
Yes, and let me tell you something, because years later, the 9/11 Commission accused or said that 9/11 was a failure of imagination. Well, there was no lack of imagination on the part of the CIA in June 2002. We were looking for different ways of doing this.
His search led him to a former military psychologist who had helped train American soldiers in how to resist torture if they were captured. The psychologist adapted the brutal tactics of our Cold War adversaries into what the CIA called enhanced interrogation techniques. A team of interrogators, about 6 of them, was given a 2-week training course. And while Rodriguez himself never engaged in any of the sessions with detainees, he supervised the program. Did the psychologist, did he tell you how long it was going to take, if you use these techniques, to break Abu Zubaydah and anybody else that you might capture?
He had speculated that within 30 days we would probably be able to get the information that we wanted, yes.
But before moving forward, Rodriguez got his superiors, right up to the president, to sign off on a set of those techniques, including waterboarding.
We needed to get everybody in government to put their big boy pants on and provide the authorities that we needed.
Their big boy pants on.
Big boy pants. Let me tell you, I had had a lot of experience in the agency where we had been left to hold the bag, and I was not about to let that happen for the people that work for me.
There wasn't going to be any deniability on this one.
There was not going to be any deniability, and I tell you something, in August of 2002, I felt I had all the authorities that I needed, all the approvals that I needed. The atmosphere in the country was different. Everybody wanted us to save American lives.
The authorities came from the Justice Department in an opinion, later dubbed one of the torture memos, that detailed what was permissible.
We went to the border of legality. We went to the border that was within legal bounds.
Even after you got the Justice Department legal office to give you this okay, you kept going back and back with each thing you did, over and over.
We wanted to make sure that the rest of government was with us.
How does the waterboarding that you engaged in, how did that work?
The detainee was strapped to an inclined board with his feet up so that no water would go.
His head was back.
So his head was back. And a cloth was placed over the mouth and the nose, and water was applied
He couldn't breathe through his nose.
So when he was saturated, then the air flow would be stopped.
And he'd have the sensation of drowning.
And he would have the sensation.
Was he naked?
In many cases, nudity was used extensively, and it worked well.
Why is nudity effective?
It is effective because a lot of people feel very vulnerable when they're nude, and also because of the culture. Nudity is not something that is common.
Each step they took was specifically spelled out in the Justice Department memo. For instance, uncooperative detainees could be put in a small, dark, cramped confinement box with an insect in it. As for waterboarding, the interrogators were allowed to pour water for up to 40 seconds at a time, quote, applied from a height of 12 to 24 inches, using about a liter of water per session. Oh, you had rules for each thing?
Yes, we had rules, and not only that, but every time we did any of this, we had to ask permission. The field had to ask permission of headquarters.
Each time?
Each time.
Each single time. After Abu Zubaydah was subjected to the CIA's menu of interrogation techniques, Rodriguez says he became compliant in less than 3 weeks. Was it waterboarding that broke the dam with Abu Zubaydah?
I think he was more taken aback by the insult slap.
Oh, what's the insult slap?
It's just slapping somebody with an open hand so that you don't hurt them.
By hurt, you mean you don't break his jaw.
We don't break his jaw, and the objective is not to inflict pain. That's not the objective. The objective is to let him know that there's a new sheriff in town, and that he better pay attention.
You also employed stress techniques.
Mm-hmm. There was a technique where the detainee would sit on the floor and would raise his hands over his head.
In other words, he had to hold his hands up there forever and ever, right?
Well, forever and ever. I was thinking about this the other day. The objective was to induce muscle fatigue that and most people who work out do a lot more fatiguing of their muscles.
Are you saying this was like going to the gym? Come on.
A little different.
Yeah.
Central to the interrogation was sleep deprivation. Abu Zubaydah was kept awake for 3 straight days.
Sleep deprivation works, and I'm sure, Leslie, with all the traveling that you do, that you have suffered from jet lag, and when you don't get a good night's sleep for 2-3 days, it's very hard.
Now, you don't really mean to suggest that it's like jet lag. I mean, you make it sound like it's benign when you say stuff like that.
Well, I mean, the
and
feeling...
going to the gym and jet lag.
Well, the feeling that you get when you don't sleep.
No, but I mean, these were enhanced interrogation techniques. Other people call it torture. This wasn't benign in any sense of the word.
I'm not trying to say that they were benign. But the problem here is that people don't understand that this program was not about hurting anybody. This program was about instilling a sense of hopelessness and despair on the terrorist, on the detainee, so that he would conclude on his own that he was better off cooperating with us.
He says once Abu Zubaydah became compliant, the harsh treatment stopped, and he became a fountain of information. But the FBI interrogators remember it differently.
In fact, what they say is everything important that he gave up to them before the harsher interrogation techniques kicked in.
Well, that is just not true. It is not true.
Well, now they say that. You say it's not true. What am I supposed to think? I don't know.
The FBI and CIA disagree, and it's impossible for us to resolve the argument because details of the interrogations remain classified. But what about the fact that detainees will say anything to stop the pain?
Here's something that was told to me. Abu Zubaydah's story sent the CIA around the globe. Not a single plot was foiled. We spent millions chasing phantoms.
Bull. He gave us a roadmap that allowed us to capture a bunch of Al-Qaeda serial leaders.
Among those leaders, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, details of his interrogation and what he told the CIA about Osama bin Laden next.